The rain has been falling over London since midnight, a steady, whispering drizzle that softens the city's neon reflections into trembling puddles. At 2:14 a.m., inside a cramped bedroom overlooking a silent residential street, a glow flickers from behind half-closed curtains. It belongs to a boy barefoot hoodie, half-sipped hair messy in that way that only comes from too many nights awake. His name is Jamie Forshaw, 17 years old, quiet, invisible, the type of kid whose teachers say he has potential, but never quite look him in the eye long enough to understand what that actually means. Tonight, his fingers move with mechanical precision over a cheap mechanical keyboard, the kind with mismatched keycaps scavenged from old computers. His room is an organized chaos. Empty energy drink cans, a battered laptop stand, wires coiled like snakes, and a corkboard covered in scribbled notes about IDs, ports, protocols, and diagrams only he understands. On his screen, a constellation of terminals are running calculations in real time. Lines of code cascade like rain on glass. Every now and then, Jamie mutters to himself small, analytical fragments of thought while a small fan hums in the background, fighting to cool equipment that's far beyond what a normal teenager should have access to. He isn't trying to break anything, not tonight. He tells himself this constantly. He's doing is testing a theory, a harmless proof of concept, something he's been toying with for weeks after stumbling upon an anomaly inside a telecom provider's publicly exposed API. Something so strange, so carelessly configured that it almost felt like an invitation. A misconfigured endpoint. A chain of unsecured requests. A forgotten system linked to a far bigger one. Each time he traced the connection, it led him deeper into a maze that shouldn't have existed. Obsolete infrastructure duct-taped to modern networks. Relics from the early 2000s quietly running under the surface of an entire nation's communications grid. It bothered him. If he could find it, anyone could. He just wanted to prove it. At 2:19 a.m., he leans closer to the screen as the terminal pings. New path discovered. A route he hasn't seen before. Stranger. Wider. Okay, that's new, he whispers. He traces the path. A heartbeat passes. Then another. Every instinct tells him to stop. But Jamie has never been good at stopping. He executes the request. From the outside, nothing happens. Inside the network, everything does. A cascade begins silent, invisible, irreversible. A malformed packet duplicates. Then again. Then again. A feedback loop emerges. A flood of requests bouncing through the system faster than human response or automated failsafes can react. The outdated core routing nodes, already overburdened and long overdue for replacement, begin to choke. Buffers overflow. Queues collapse. Systems fall out of sync. In under 30 seconds, the fragile scaffolding holding the nation's telecom infrastructure together begins to buckle. At 2:20 a.m., Jamie frowns. His terminal freezes, then reopens, then dies, and then the entire screen goes black. He presses keys. Nothing. He taps the laptop's frame. Nothing. He reaches behind to check the cable. His Wi-Fi is down. He pauses, confusion curling around the edges of his thoughts. He reaches for his phone on the nightstand, taps the screen awake. The signal indicator spins, hungry for connection. No service. He tries again. Same result. Then a sinking realization slips into his chest like cold water. This isn't just his network. This is something bigger. Across the country, in thousands of houses, apartments, offices, airports, police precincts, emergency call centers, hospitals, and government buildings, the exact same quiet outage spreads like a shadow, moving at the speed of light. Phones drop to 0 bars. Digital displays blink out. Security systems attempt to reconnect to servers that no longer respond. Fiber routers trip overload protections and shut down. Mobile towers stutter, fail, and fall silent one by one. A nationwide telecom blackout has begun. Jamie doesn't know any of that yet. He only knows that something is wrong, deeply, terrifyingly wrong. His stomach knots. He reboots the laptop. When it finally powers back on, he scrambles to open diagnostic tools, trying to re-establish the connection. But every command returns the same impossible answer. Network unreachable. He stands abruptly, knocking over two empty cans. His breathing quickens as he tries to map the sequence of events backward, evaluating what could have spiraled out of control. One malformed packet shouldn't have done this. It shouldn't have touched anything beyond the endpoint he targeted. Unless the system he touched wasn't isolated at all. Unless it was wired into something far larger. Unless he had just punched a hole in the heart of a network designed 2 decades ago and quietly patched and repatched ever since, until even the engineers responsible for it didn't fully understand its architecture. His chest tightens. Did I? He doesn't finish the sentence. At 2:27 a.m., sirens begin to wail in the distance, small at first, then multiplying. He pulls the curtain aside. The street looks normal, quiet, empty, but a police car speeds past, lights flashing. A few seconds later, another. Jamie's pulse thunders in his ears. He sits again, forcing himself to breathe, forcing his hands to steady as he reopens logs and scans timestamps. He tries to calculate how fast the malfunction could have propagated, which systems might have been affected, which emergency protocols might have triggered. He's still running those calculations when the first headlines appear online, on his devices, but on the ones that still have power. In living rooms where televisions remain connected via cable, in airport terminals running independent wired lines, in security operations centers that still have satellite uplinks, and breaking. Nationwide mobile networks down, 'cause unknown. Minutes later, major telecom outage affecting emergency services. Then, government declares level 1 infrastructure incident. Someone posts shaky footage of police manually directing traffic in a city center where traffic lights have lost remote connectivity. Another video shows a hospital scrambling as its call system collapses. Another captures a sea of confused travelers staring at dead departure boards. Jamie stares at the screen, numb. He feels like he's watching a stranger's nightmare. He didn't intend this. He wasn't trying to break anything. He was investigating a flaw. A hobbyist curiosity spiraling into destruction. He tries once more to access the system, desperate to undo whatever he triggered. But the routes he used are gone, timed out, unresponsive, swallowed in the chaos. At 3:02 a.m., after nearly 40 minutes of total disruption, the first telecom engineers finally identify the anomaly. They trace it to the outdated routing nodes tied into the legacy API. They isolate the loop, cut the connection, and begin the painstaking reboot sequence, systems collapsing, then restarting, then syncing. It's slow, fragile work. At 3:18 a.m., the country takes its first breath of returning signal. Bars flicker, connections reestablish, servers reboot. But the outage is now national news. Jamie sits motionless, staring at nothing. His throat is dry. No. The room feels smaller, like the walls are inching inward. Downstairs, he hears movement, his mother stirring, confused by the sudden storm of news alerts. Then something outside makes his blood turn to ice. A door shutting, a car engine idling. Boots on pavement, not one set, several. Jamie's breath catches. A knock rattles the quiet house loud, controlled, unmistakable. He doesn't move. His mother calls out, groggy and startled. He hears her footsteps heading toward the stairs. The knock sounds again, this time accompanied by a voice. Metropolitan Police. Please open the door. Jamie closes his eyes. He knew this moment was coming the second the screen went black. He stands slowly, heart hammering, and steps out of his room. The hallway feels impossibly long. The staircase seems to stretch. His mother reaches the front door before he does, confusion written across her face as she peers through the window at the officers on the porch, black uniforms, radios buzzing with heightened chatter. When the door opens, the officers step inside with calm, practiced precision. One of them asks for Jamie by name. Another explains that they're investigating the telecom outage. Another requests immediate access to his computer equipment. His mother stands frozen, trying to make sense of what she's hearing. Jamie doesn't run. He doesn't argue. He just nods. Because somewhere deep beneath the panic, beneath the guilt, beneath the shock, he knows he needs to take responsibility. He knows what he did, accidental or not, set off a chain reaction no one could hide. He is escorted out into the cold night air, where more officers wait. Neighbors' lights turn on, curtains shift, whispers rise. The boy no one noticed is now the center of a national incident. As he sits in the back of the patrol car, staring through fogged glass at the quiet street he grew up on, the first wave of questions begins to crash over him. What will happen now? Will they understand it was an accident? Will anyone believe him? Will they treat him like a criminal, a threat, or something else entirely? At 4:02 a.m., investigative teams swarm his room, carefully removing hardware, photographing notes, tracing cables. A digital forensic officer lifts his laptop off the desk with gloved hands, studying the strange mismatched keycaps with the faintest expression of curiosity. Meanwhile, in the operations center of the national telecom provider, exhausted engineers piece together the timeline. They trace the anomaly back to the exposed legacy API. They map the cascade. They studied the glitch. Though slowly, painfully, they realized the uncomfortable truth. The system failed because it was already broken. Jamie didn't penetrate their defenses. He didn't brute force anything. He didn't exploit a backdoor or bypass security. He simply stumbled upon a thread that should never have led anywhere and pulled. In the interview room, under harsh fluorescent lights, Jamie explains everything. His voice is shaking. His hands are cold. But his answers are clear, detailed, technical. The investigators, initially expecting arrogance or malice, begin to see something else instead. Genius, naivety, curiosity, colliding with fragility. The more they listen, the more the impossible truth emerges. The blackout was triggered by a hacker trying to cause harm. It was triggered by a teenage researcher following a trail of exposed systems left rotting in the dark. By sunrise, the nation is awake to the headlines. Teenage hobbyist linked to massive telecom outage. Vulnerability and legacy. System-triggered blackout. Investigation reveals critical infrastructure flaws. Footage spreads of Jamie being led out of his home hood pulled tight, expression pale, looking both terrified and impossibly young. Opinions explode online. Some call him a criminal. Some call him brilliant. Some call him a cautionary tale of what happens when outdated systems collide with curious minds. But the people who matter most, the engineers, the investigators, the cybersecurity specialists see him differently, not as the cause of the outage, but as the symptom of a much deeper problem. In the days that follow, Jamie is questioned, evaluated, analyzed. Technical experts pore over his code and confirm his intent. Psychologists assess him and confirm he is not a threat. Prosecutors review the chain of events and realize that charging him would expose the telecom provider as crippling negligence in ways no one wants to confront publicly. Quietly, carefully, the narrative shifts. The boy who shut down a country becomes the boy who revealed a system on the brink of collapse. A system held together with outdated infrastructure and forgotten dependencies. A system waiting for a failure to push it over the edge. 1 week later, Jamie walks out of an interview room for the last time. He isn't charged, he isn't punished. But he isn't exactly free either. His story is already out there. He returns home to a life that can no longer be ordinary. His equipment is gone. His anonymity is gone. His childhood is gone. But something else appears in the aftermath: a letter sent to his house, embossed with a government seal. An offer, an invitation, a chance to channel his abilities into something constructive. Something supervised. Something meaningful. Jamie doesn't answer immediately. For the first time in his life, he hesitates before diving deeper. He stands by his bedroom window that night, watching the city lights pulse in the distance. The same lights that flickered out because of him, the same lights that came back on because of others. A quiet world hums beyond the glass, connected, fragile, and forever changed. He wonders if he, too, has changed. A boy once obsessed with the thrill of discovery now understands the weight of consequence. A mind once driven by pure curiosity now recognizes the edge between probing and breaking. The blackout will be remembered for years, investigated, debated, documented. And somewhere in the narrative, buried beneath headlines and speculation, one truth remains unchanged. A 17-year-old didn't set out to shut down a country. He set out to understand it. And in doing so, he exposed just how easily it could fall apart. In the quiet of his dimly lit room, Jamie sits once more at his desk, now empty, save for a notepad. He opens it, writes one sentence. Systems fail when no one asks how they work. He closes the notebook. And for the first time since that long, rain-soaked night, he finally sleeps.